I've only 100 guineas left to give you, for I lost the rest at cards last night. Kiss me, my boy, for we'll never meet again.
We were talking a little bit about your ever-impressive resume, but I left out some of the highlights because I think we'll want to get to that in a conversational point. But I talked about your history with Stanley Kubrick. Many people in our audience actually think that you are the reason he had all that success, that it had nothing to do with him, that it was actually you who...
That's so right.
That you had to pull Stanley aside and say, Stanley, we really need a big wheel shot in this movie somewhere. It's a big hotel. We need a big wheel shot. How did you meet Kubrick, and how did you come to work with him for so long? Because he trusted you for so long on so many things.
Well, I was an actor. I went to drama school and was trained as an actor in London, and I just went to an audition for Barry Lyndon. It was strange because I'd just left drama school when I saw 2001, and I was just totally so impressed with it and blown away. And what impressed me most was that here was a film, and for the first 20 minutes there hadn't been a word of dialogue, but you were following a story, and it was so wonderfully told and beautifully photographed, of course. And then after that, while I was actually working as an actor, I saw Clockwork Orange, and it just absolutely appealed to me in such a huge way, because at drama school, you're kind of taught, well, in my drama school anyway, we worked a lot with improvisation, a lot, and also, how to find a character through improvisation. And it seemed to me all the performances were so broad, so big, and I just loved that. It seemed such a hybrid between film and theater somehow. And I just turned to the person who I was watching the film with, and I just said, I just got to work for that person. And while I was on another film somewhere in Ireland, actually, I heard about auditions for Barry Lyndon, and so my agent sent in my CV and my photograph, and I went for an audition, thinking that it was like every audition that was ever held in England at that time for film, where you sit down with a producer and a director maybe, and they look at your photograph and they say yes or no or maybe on the spot. But it wasn't like that. It was the first time I'd ever done a video audition. You've got to remember, this is like 1973. It was reel-to-reel video in those days, so it was very, very primitive. I didn't get to meet Stanley. I did 2 auditions on video. I didn't actually get to meet Stanley until I went down to the location, which was in Salisbury in England. And he just tapped me on the arm when I was hanging around in the hotel, wondering what was going on, and just introduced himself very quietly. Hi, Leon. Yeah, I'm Stanley. And it was just like that. And we started talking, and that's how I met him. And it was another 2 months before I actually got on set to shoot anything. And he had a peculiar way of working in that way, because he had me called and full makeup and costume and everything, but I would just sit outside the set and just stew, basically. And, so it was 2 months before we actually met on the set.
Now, how long was that shoot? Because that's an epic movie.
Well, they started shooting in, I think, in the late summer in Ireland. And I was waiting and waiting and waiting for the call because everyone assumed that the whole thing was going to be shot in Ireland, you know. And, you know, it just went on and on and on. And it was only in the end of January that I finally got a call. And then I found out subsequently that they'd left Ireland. And the, you know, ostensible reason for leaving Ireland was because the safe in the production office had been blown and they'd been given a warning letter by the IRA that they had to get out of Ireland. And so that was, you know, basically the reason why they shifted and moved location back to England.
Well, you got to appreciate the IRA's agenda at the time to say, we're going to make a statement by forcing the Stanley Kubrick production off of our island.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm sure they made hay with that one, really do. But I had a contract. My contract originally, see, was for it was for 13 shooting days over 8 weeks. And so when I went down in January, I only thought I'd be there till March. But in the end, I was there till the end of August. And, you know, I only had one big scene and a couple of small scenes to establish a character when I first went down there. By the time we'd finished, he'd written a whole bunch of scenes for me and just kept me there till the end of the movie.
And if our audience is wondering, those who've seen the movie, Leon wraps it up by blasting Ryan O'Neal in the leg, which is later amputated because of the shot.
Amputated, yes.
Way to get it done. Way to get it done. So that's really where you started, because when I first met you the first time, I was struck by how young you were to have such a history with such a prolific filmmaker, and now it makes perfect sense. And at that point, I guess after Barry Lyndon, Stanley says, you know, I like this guy. This guy's agreeable and he's smart. Maybe I should hire him. Is that how it went down, or how did it work?
Well, I think, you know, with Stanley, everything happened on an emotional level. I mean, you know, he was a complicated guy, as I'm sure you can understand. But, you know, he would allow me to come on the set and just watch what was going on, which may not sound much, but when you realize that Stanley was the kind of person, if you had no business on the set, no work on the set, everyone stay away, and that included, you know, Warner Brothers executives and people on his own staff. So, you know, it was incredibly illuminating just to sit in a set, and he allowed me to. I could ask him anything I wanted. I mean, I could ask him about why he was doing a particular lighting setup, and I just got so interested in it. And by the end of the production, you know, I was telling him that, you know, I was kind of getting more interested in how you make the pictures than actually being in them. And that's what he remembered. And so when he was going into production for The Shining, I was living in Stockholm in Sweden at that time, and I just got a book through the post, just a little brief note saying, read this. And so I read it, and 2 days later he called me, and it was The Shining, and he said, would you like to work on this? And I said, yes, I would.
Your road to redemption is paved with tombstones. No quarter, kill all masters. Go to noquarterkillallmasters.com. Rated R.